Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Merrill Solesky
Alrighty,
here.
welcome to another episode of the
Oh,
One Last
Merrill, you
Cast
got to turn
Sorry
that
about
podcast.
down.
My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Meryl Solesky here.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Always something, Merrill.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, reintroducing Merrill Solesky. Say hi, Merrill.
Hey, how's it going?
Uh, it's hot again. It's still hot. Nothing's changed. We have that tropical storm kind of thing in the Gulf, and it's not bringing, at least the Galveston area, any rain. Um, It sucks. I mean, we've had multiple days of triple digits, and I sweat just thinking about going outside.
Yeah, yeah. So some places got a little bit of rain here.
Yeah, I saw
We,
Kyle's video. It's basically like his streets flooding.
oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
but he's out in Rockport, right?
Yeah. He's closer to where that tropical disturbance is happening. Um, but
A lot
anyways,
of a lot of fishermen like this rain. They want this rain. I know some of you guys need it for y'all's lawns, but it also does something to our fishery that that helps us out as well. Like it does a good flush. Sometimes we need a good flush, and it moves a lot of this bait and makes it easier for us to catch fish when it rains a little heavy. So it does a lot of good things for our bait system. As weird as it sounds. What do you?
I would have to disagree. I would
Oh,
gladly
okay.
sacrifice my lawn, which I am doing that right now. My lawn's dead. But I like this because generally during the if it keeps up for the fall and winter fishing, it's great.
Oh,
Um,
good point. Good point.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's just me. Actually,
I like it because it pushes it like pushes the bait out, and then all the birds start working. It just makes it so easy to catch fish, especially in these brackish areas. So yeah, it does a lot.
yeah,
Please.
actually, let me walk that back because I'm sure my wife is listening, and I haven't watered the lawn, and she's probably mad at me for saying that. So, yeah, my lawn is not it's dying, and I will water the lawn soon. But before we go into and actually, what you're talking about is a perfectly good segue into brackish water and talking about Sabine. Backstage, we have Daniel Dong back there. He's a YouTuber, fisherman, kayak fisherman. He has joined the dark side recently, had gotten a boat, but he has a lot of good knowledge and should provide some good insights onto fishing Sabine and surrounding areas. But before we do that, wanted to give a shout out to our sponsors, Dirty South Kayak Anglers or DSKA is a perfectly good Facebook group to go to look for fishing information and just talk fishing. It's a great area to hop onto. And I would suggest you guys do that. And then we have 4A printing. Aaron does awesome work with like our custom towels, which is like this right here. I know we've been trying to send them out to some of our listeners who've been listening to us and give them as a freebie. Also, I've reached out to Aaron to hopefully provide some stuff for my fantasy football league. So we'll see how that goes. But he does great work and has some good products. So reach out to him if for anything like that. Also, Knock and Tail Lures are go-to soft plastic that swimming on the fall action as well as the built-in rattle in the tail. It's just it gives something different for the fish to look at and hear as well as see. And like I said, one of my favorite colors is this like electric color, it's chartreuse and white as well as the plum chartreuse. I know that Merrill likes roach as well, so if you're looking to get some of those, you can find them for sure at your at any of your favorite taco stores. FTU I know carries them. Waterloo online carries them. But if you want to order directly, just go to knockandtaillures.com. You'll find it there as well. Also, definitely want to give a shout out to Brittany Solesky, uh, Merrill's lovely wife. She's a realtor based in the Houston area for both commercial and residential. If you're looking for something here in the Houston area, feel free to reach out to her. She does a great job getting her clients the property that they want. Uh, if you are looking to email her, it's Brittany, so BRITNEY at grindstonereg.com, or reach out to her via cell at 281-740-0498. All right. So, Meryl, I know I haven't fished Sabine in like years. I would like to say probably like 6, 7 years. And the last time I fished it, I've only fished it probably twice. You probably have more experience than I do, but let's set the stage and from your perspective, because I know you fished it more than I probably have, right? Or am I wrong?
Man, I probably fished Sabine. in the last like 3 years. So I haven't fished it a lot before that. I think I fished it like once or twice
Hmm.
before that, but the last 3 years I maybe 20 to 30 times.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's my peak
that
stop.
that that's way more than my entire life.
Oh,
So,
oh, okay, all right, yeah.
so kind of set the stage. What kind of what are we looking at with Sabine here?
And I like Sabine because of the amount of redfish and sometimes trout and I mean I'm not going there to catch flounder, even though I've caught good flounder there, but I mainly go to Sabine to catch. Sabine is like on the border of Texas and Louisiana. I do believe Louisiana has some really nice redfish, healthy redfish, and it being so close to Louisiana, you can catch some really nice healthy redfish in their marsh systems. Um, I fished a lot of mostly right. I fished more than these areas is Texas Bayou and Keith Lakes are the main ones that I fished a lot of.
Those are the two areas that I've been to.
Yeah,
So
I've fished all the way in there's several lakes back behind Keith Lake. I've gone all the way far as back there and venture off, and I mean it's just one of those spots I think is fun because some of the spots are real easy to get to, and some of them are tough. If you got to know your way, you'll get stuck. But I mean, a lot of the area, if you can navigate it well through the channels, you can get in and out quick. And it's, I mean, for me, it'd be hard to fish that marsh system in one day. So it's definitely something you'd have to go back and explore more and more and more. I know Texas Bayou is all over the YouTube and all over the internet and Facebook, and people post a lot of pictures there of fish they catch. Texas Bayou is a really deep gut that kind of just spreads out into smaller, marsher areas, and you can pretty much get lost back in there and have fun, have a good time. Just make sure you know your way back and you go with the group and so forth. And be careful with the current, right? That current can get. I've seen people getting caught in pretty nasty situations with that current when it's going in the outgoing tide. At least in the incoming, it'll push you in the marsh. So if you can time it out, you definitely don't want to go there on a strong outgoing tide. You know, even though there's really good bites, then try not to launch at those times. It can get pretty strong fast. Um,
awesome. Well, now that you just
oh,
scared
sorry.
people from ever fishing Texas Bayou, let's uh let's bring in our guest, Daniel Dong. He's the uh he's really the only person I kind of follow over there who fishes that area consistently. And he seems to be always on the fish. So how's it going, Daniel?
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
No, no, no. Thanks for joining us. So, um, kind of, uh, kind of. How about you set the stage for us? Like, if you were to describe Sabine in a few words, how would you describe it?
Sabine as of right now, or just Sabine in general?
In general.
Sabine is a great fishery. Like Merle said, there's a lot of redfish, there's a lot of trout. Actually, a lot of people don't think that we have a lot of trout, but Sabine is a brackish water estuary where trout actually congregate in huge numbers here. We might not have the giant size like Galveston and Freeport and all that lower coast area, but we have an amazing numbers fishery. There's days we can go out there and bang 200 plus trout in a day, and that's a slow day for us sometimes. And the red fishing too. Sabine is such a wonderful area to fish just because we have that brackish water estuary. The river feeds into the lake. We have such a nutrient rich environment that all these fish can just bloom, and it's really an amazing fishery that a lot of people don't know of.
Yeah. And that to me, that's one reason why I was very interested in fishing Sabine, at least for me personally, because uh, I my home waters when I first started fishing, heavily in the kayak was more Clear Lake, Kima area, and that's a microcosm of a estuary and brackish water. So your Sabine is that's the whole thing right there. That's that just to me screamed like just really good fishing and like I said numbers. But what would you you said you have something to say about now. So what is it now?
right now with the river being low, this drought that we're having, the fishing has really boomed. The salinity has risen up to record highs. Usually in Sabine, in the lake, your salinity is getting to about on a salty summer day, usually maybe 10 parts per thousand. Now we're seeing numbers up to 19. So we're seeing trout in areas where usually you don't catch a trout. We're seeing fish pull into places where we don't usually see them. The other day we were out, I saw a cobia, a little baby cobia, up in the lake. So
Dang.
the salinity is there, guys, and a lot of fish push in with the Gulf being right there at the mouth of the lake. There's no fences, so these fish can just swim up anywhere they want.
No, that's really cool, and that's also the reason why I kind of I don't want the rain because all these brackish areas, all these fish just go up and further up, and it becomes certain areas where people overlook because they're not looking for fish over there, and all of a sudden you just all the trout and flounder they just start congregating, and to them it's new waters, and to me it's just areas where just nobody ever goes there to fish. So um so
I'm trying to.
so
I'm sorry, real quick. I'm
yeah.
trying to think of the name of that park that's way in the back, behind. Like you pass it, like you're coming into Spain, then you go all the way to the back. There's a little park you got to pay to go into, and it's like fresh back there most of the time. And I'm wondering if that's where y'all catching trout way back there. What is it? I don't know if it's a Texas Park and Wildlife thing or
You either talking about McFadden,
McFadden, maybe. Yes.
like going down the beach,
No, 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 not down the beach.
or is it going
You're
towards Texas Bayou?
so you're in Sabine, right? And then you take this one road, and it goes far back, right? But instead of going through the Texas Bayou side, you're going in the opposite direction. There's
Oh,
some,
that's Dick Dowling, Sabine Battlegrounds.
yeah, that's you got to pay to get in, right?
Yeah,
Or like you just leave the money envelope right there, and it gets fresh back there. It gets pretty fresh back there. Y'all catching trout back there?
dude, I'm catching trout in my redfish ponds.
Oh man,
Like one cast, you'll catch a bass. Next cast, you'll catch a redfish. Next cast, you'll catch a trout. You get lucky, you might catch a flounder back there. The other trip
Mm.
my brother and Roland went out, we got the Sabine Slam.
That's cool. That's real cool, man. I mean, so do you kind of like the freshwater? You're hoping for rain to help out the fishing, just because of the confusion, and you kind of like what the freshwater does to y'all space system. I like what freshwater does to like Clear Lake, to Trinity, to um, what's this spot up here? Baytown, Burnett Bay. I like what freshwater does to those places. Um, don't get me wrong. I'm not asking for like 3 days of nonstop rain, right? But I kind of like a little rain because it makes it easier for a fisherman like me to see fish, right? It just pushes that bait out. The bait comes out. The birds are working. Fish are feeding, and you're just on them, and it makes for fun days. How about you guys out there, Sabine? That's pretty similar to what you guys experience, or is it different? Just totally different.
So it'll all depend on what I'm really wanting to do. So if I get a lot of rain, I can't go sight fishing for redfish. Or if I get a lot of rain, I know the trout bite's going to be kind of slow, and I'm going to have to find them a different way. But rain can also be a really great thing as far as my other things that I want to do. Maybe we got a big torrential downpour. I can go run up the river and catch blue cats, or I can go bass fishing. You just have to adapt around here. It's not like Galveston where there's a lot of guys that only want to target trout or only want to target redfish. So here you kind of have to be a Swiss Army knife, kind of adapt to what you want to do. If you get a big rain, yeah, you can go catch reds, a bunch of trout.
Yeah, and actually going through and looking at Google Maps of Sabine, what's like so if you think of Galveston, you're thinking of this really shallow bay with the only really deep areas are going to be like the ship channel that are dredged out for shipping and stuff like that. So, what is the kind of the topography that we're looking at for Sabine?
So the topography of Sabine, if you look at it, we on the north end we have two major rivers. You have the Sabine River and the Neches River that feed into the lake. And the topography of it, it's really cool. That north end, you have a lot of shallow flats, and once you run towards the middle of the lake, that whole lake is usually around 5, 6 foot of water. So you really don't have to worry about running aground so much. Yeah, as long as you stay in the middle of the lake. Now, once you start running towards the bank, it starts getting a little shallower, maybe about a foot, foot and a half. But once you get towards the ship channel as well, you have a lot of shallow oyster beds that you have to really want to stick in the channel for, unless you know like where these oyster beds are. And that's what I love about Sabine is that I can run anywhere full throttle and not really worry about hitting something or running aground. We have a lot of deep channels and a lot of deep flats, even.
Yeah, we can't do that in like tabs. Like if you run full throttle, you're gonna lose a lower unit somewhere. So, um, and I guess what like, one of the things that's really intriguing to me, and like you said, you have these two rivers that are feeding into it. Um, it I would assume it's different, but your tactics be different when you're fishing, like let's say the main lake, and then as you go further up into the Sabine and the Nucius River?
So my taxes really don't change.
Okay.
I have pretty much my set go to baits. I throw Daily Dudleys on a 1/4 ounce jig head. Sometimes I'll throw it on an 1/8 ounce. But that's really a bait that I can use and just get around and just try to scout out new places. All the fish in my area will eat it. So it's something that I would definitely have tied up just to search around and try to find new fish.
Okay. Um, I'm trying to imagine for me, like I'm looking at like in Clear Lake where I'm fishing a lot of like specifically structure around there. And then of course if you go to like West Bay, it's all grass, so you're fishing something different. Um is it I guess is it different for like I'm thinking from a trout perspective because I just that's my thing is trout. Whenever you're fishing up these rivers, are you looking for those the way that these rivers turn? They usually create these like what they call like oxbow lakes kind of thing where they kind of curve. Are you fishing these curves? Are you looking at like fallen trees in the water? I'm not familiar with fishing those rivers, so I forgive me if I'm getting everything a little mixed up. But are you looking for structures such as that?
So as far as trout goes, our trout migrate from the north end. You have a resident population along the north end because we have a levee system up there that has a couple pipes that dump water out. So you have actually a decent amount of salinity there even during the summer. And sometimes we'll get jacks and sharks running up to the north end of the lake where the river feeds out. Like the other day, I was in the bayous sight fishing redfish, place where I usually catch bass, you know, redfish, see a stingray or two, sheephead. I see a 5 foot bull shark right here down at my feet. So that's another thing, like you said, with the rain as well. The rain will flush all that stuff out. You won't have that bull shark in there or that black tip in there, but you will have an influx, like Merle said, of bait flushing out, and the birds will start working. Like right now, we do have a lot of shrimp in the estuary. Like when I go night fishing, I'm seeing tons of shrimp skipping by, but they're just migrating out on the tide. They're not getting flushed out by the rain. So during the day, they're just waiting for that tide to start moving to move. Versus if we had a big rain, all the bait would get flushed out of the bayous, all the shrimp, mullet, shad, and we would just have a big boom in the lake. But as far as fishing the river, I don't really touch it too much because if I'm red fishing, yeah, I'll go up there. Trout fishing, I'd stay more towards the jetties, towards the ship channel, where you have that higher influx of salinity and clean water. That's really what you're looking for in Sabine if you're going for trout. Find the cleanest, saltiest water you can.
Y'all got them stuck up trout. Galveston,
Oh,
man. We got them dirty trout, man. You
Yeah.
catch them in dirty water, dioxins everywhere. I'm just teasing. But yeah, so I wonder if it's the same levee I fished, right? It's got these buoys, and then some people like throw over the buoys to catch fish and bring it over. Is that the levee you're talking about?
no, I think I know what you're talking about. That might be the hot ditch. If you're having,
Yeah,
if
yeah. People
yeah,
fish
that's
it
the
for the
hot ditch.
winter,
That's the
especially.
Exxon outfall actually, and that's
Oh,
actually a
okay,
really great place during the most brutal winters you can have.
right. Yeah, dioxin trout.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got them rough trout over here. I was joking about it when a whole bunch of those fish are the trout that died during the freeze, and a lot of our trout survived. So I always joke around saying that our trout are gangster over here.
They're 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 just built differently.
Yeah, our trout built different.
But, so actually, you're bring up winter fishing, and of course for me, I know Merrill and we love fall and winter fishing. Um, what's your I guess if you were to pick a time to come down there, and I say come down there because it's not really come down there, it's come over to Sabine, to fish, what would you pick as the best time to go over there?
The best times for fishing in general would be fall. You can't beat a good fall bite. You have chances of running out in the lake, and then you have birds working. You have the flounder running. Trout are everywhere. Redfish are out in the lake too. They're not way back in the ponds anymore. Um, Other than that, I'd go with winter. Deep, cold winter. I'm talking about you got to bundle up. If you don't bring a windbreaker for your face, you're losing your nose type winter. Because
Yeah.
that's the time where you can literally you can get on a map and look where these fish are gonna be. These fish are gonna pull into the deepest holes they can, and once you find them, you're just gonna be sitting there banging redfish cast after cast. So if I was gonna do it, I would definitely do winter. If you're looking for bigger trout, bigger redfish, or just a lot of redfish in general.
So would that make it easier? Like what's so like Texas? We'll just say Texas Bayou. That's a deep bayou, right? So is that one of those spots in certain areas where they just get a little bit deeper, that they just congregate in these fish? Because I remember fishing just the main part of the channel and catching big redfish as they run through, like in certain tide movements. I know some tournament fishermen. That's just all they do is they fish
Mhm.
that gut. They won't go into the marshes. They won't go anywhere else. They'll stay right there in one spot. These guys are more experienced, so they got their little technique strategy down that works for them. But I mean, is that like one of a spot you would kind of guess that a lot of these skinny, shallow, well, relatively skinny, shallow areas they come flush out into that bigger part of the water? Is that
Yes,
something?
yes, sir. So Texas Bayou is a bayou that has a lot of oyster shells, and that's what those redfish are going to be hanging around, especially during the winter. You got to think a redfish will stay as shallow as he possibly can until he physically cannot be shallow anymore. Either one, the water's going to be gone, or two, it's just too cold for him to be up there. You know, I found even on a low tide, if we have decent weather, those redfish will pull up shallow. But if you're going out there on a cold winter day, it's been, 40s and 50s for the past week. You got to think, a foot of water is going to be that almost that air temperature. So these redfish are going to pull into the deepest holes that they can and hang around that structure. That's the main thing is you're finding these bayous with some structure to it, either a bend in the bayou or oyster beds on the bottom. And these redfish, which is literally stack on top of each other, I have like on my GPS some images where you can just see them just layer it up like this and just laying on a little patch of oyster bed. And that main channel you're talking about that a lot of those guys fish is one of the biggest oyster beds in that entire bayou. It stretches from that bridge all the way to that Y and goes even a little further. And you have the ship channel right there. The ship channel is 50 some foot of water, so saltwater sinks while freshwater will float. If you get a good incoming tide, it'll push all that salinity in there as well. So these redfish have good salinity, good oxygen in the water, and it has the depth to protect them. So that's why all these fish will just gang up in those deeper holes.
You bring up a good point. Oxygen. Do you think that is relative to the trout of these redfish? Because I mean, they're. I mean, Sabine's known for a little bit heavier redfish than usual. You think the oxygen level has a play to do, other than the whole bunch of estuaries y'all have in the back that produces tons of bait? I know where I'm at right now. You could throw a cast net almost anywhere in these back areas, and you're catching palm-sized shrimp. Like
Yeah,
these shrimps are huge, and that's like just me and my son. We like to throw the cast net, catch fish, and have fun, throw crab traps and stuff. And I've noticed that the shrimp are bigger than usual, and we're catching a lot more of them. But other than that, like, do you think that plays in a big part of y'all's bigger redfish? I mean, I'm speaking from my experience. That might not be true. I'm just saying, what do you think? Do you think you guys have bigger redfish than other sub parts of the coast?
yes, sir. Yes, we do. Actually, it's crazy to see how much of a difference fishing Sabine would be for a redfish tournament or just red fishing in general. So if you go down to Freeport, Kima, all those Gulf Coast places, you're a two fish limit to win it. You probably need 15 and a half pounds, right? Maybe a little like a light 16. Here, you bring a light 16 into the scales, you're probably not going to cut a check. Here, you need those 9-pound fish. Where our average upper end slot averages about 9 pounds. An 8.5, 8.2 is like a decent fish, but you really need to compete here. You need those 9+ pound fish. So me and my partner Roland fished the Salt Pro series, the series you see behind me here, and we were averaging like 21, 22 pounds during that whole series, and we were getting like third place.
Oh,
So
shoot.
to even contend, you need to be catching 8+ pound fish in your stringer. And actually the first one that we fished, we actually won that one with 27 pounds. 27 and a half pounds. That's a 9-pound average. And our heaviest fish weighed 9.3, almost 9.5 pounds. So here, I think the reason we have such big, heavy redfish is one, we have a lot of bayou and marsh that they can go hide in and just feed. If you, like you said, you go in these marshes, you wouldn't believe the amount of bait in there. You would think a redfish would just open his mouth and just have everything he could possibly want, you know? And a lot of it, too, I tone to the grass. If you could think about it, you have two fields. One's a overcut where it's just cleared out, you can see all the way through it, versus another field where you have a tall grass, real thick. That cut over maybe can hide 2 or 3 animals and you can see it all, versus the thick grass where you can have 1,000 animals in there and not ever see them. So one, our fish don't get harassed. Two, they have an endless supply of food. And three, they have an area where they can just go in and feed and not burn a lot of energy. So I think that's the part of the reason why we have such big redfish and good numbers.
For those of you who are listening and also watching live, which we are live every other Tuesday on our Facebook page at facebook.com/one last cast podcast, I would rewind and take notes on that because that was really good information right there. I was taking notes as well, so there's just so much good info right there in regards to kind of taking down an area, learning an area where not even just redfish, but just in general, fish where they have that food supply. But even taking consideration what you're saying about like that grass, that's a very good analogy where you have this overgrown grass and your fish don't get harassed as much, and it provides those that estuary and sanctuary for those smaller bait fish and shrimp. Which, by the way, Mero, I went out gigging the other day. Didn't do too well because the water was stained, but I had like 100 shrimp jump into my kayak. It was it was like it was crazy. Um, uh, and and that just to me, it just screams that like
Lower
our
lower shrimp prices. That's what it screams to me. Yeah, we
Yes.
should
oh no.
once they move out, we're gonna get lower shrimp prices. That
No,
whole
I was thinking more of those fish in that area are gonna be fat because there's just so much shrimp in that area.
Mhm.
But that's just crazy though. You heard me kind of cry out like for me an 18-pound stringer is like that's a chef's kiss right there.
Mhm.
But man, a 19 to 20-pound stringer.
Yeah.
Ah,
So we fished one of the larger tournaments down here. It's called the Fisherama tournament, where we were going up against like 200 plus anglers, and we came in third place with 17 and a quarter, and first place was 17.9, something like that, almost 18 pounds. And you're talking about first through fifth place, everyone had 17 pounds. A 16-pound stringer wouldn't have done nothing for you in that tournament.
yeah.
So
that's
here
a
you
tough
gotta find.
competition. Yeah, that's pretty tough, stiff competition right there. You got. I mean, I fished when the back in the days when Saltwater Boys used to be the main kayak foundation down there, and they used to do they did all kinds of creative tournaments down there. But you knew that those weights were going to be 8 pounds, maybe win big redfish, but most likely a 9 to 10 pound would win big redfish. And big weights were always brought in at those tournaments. I can't remember the names of them. I think I fished like a handful of them. Um, was it One Fish Wonder was one of them?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
the
One Fish
one fish
Wonder.
wonder, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there was Sabine versus H Town.
Oh
Think they
yeah. By the way, H Town beat Sabine. Beat beat
It's because
the
I wasn't
brakes.
fishing that one. I
We
wasn't
we
fishing that one.
we beat the brakes out of Sabine. Just put it that way. I know we get a lot of trash talk after this, but I rub it in their face every time we get.
Can't let them H Town boys come in and do that.
We beat them. We beat them. We beat them good. They didn't even throw a tournament after that. They're just like that was it. No more. They threw
Can't
in
be
the
giving
towel.
money to these out of
Yeah,
towners, bro.
yeah.
But yeah, just kind of understanding your area, man. A lot of these redfish tournaments, they have like basically open, like you can basically fish whatever bay system up and down the Texas coast. Um, and just hearing that, I would imagine like why would you not fish Sabine just because there's just, that fishery just sounds like amazing. And of course, when you think about fishing in general, you think from the standpoint of like fishing in the United States, you're thinking of probably Florida as one of them, and of course, Louisiana is right next door. Um, and then you have like Texas right there too. So having all those heavy weights and having all those heavy redfish, and I guess that brings up another thing. Whenever you're fishing and you're catching these heavy redfish, are you mainly are you sight casting them? Are they just back in those ponds and you're sight casting them, or are you kind of working these guts and these these, for example, just another example, Texas Bayou, where it's you have this bayou that's going up and down and winding around. You're fishing those deep, around those corners. Is that you're fishing blind casting doing that, or you sight casting them?
So, like I said before, redfish want to be shallow. You guys fish a lot of Galveston. Y'all fish the ship channel for those redfish. Those are structured fish. And if you're fishing a tournament wise, I would go with trying to find a resident fish. So a resident fish would be a fish that's just pulled up to an area and he's not going anywhere. He's just sitting there eating and getting big and heavy. Versus the schooling fish where you see these schools can go 200 yards in a blink of an eye. That means they're burning a lot more calories. They're burning all that food off. So you could catch a upper end slot, but he might be only 7 pounds. You know, you got to think about it like if I'm a big dude, what am I doing? I'm just sitting on the couch eating, right? I'm not going to run a marathon. Now, if I'm a real skinny dude, I'm not eating a lot and I'm running, I'm burning a lot more weight off. So for me, fishing tournaments, I prefer getting shallower one, I can really target the fish that I want versus blind fishing where I could possibly be catching trout or flounder, not knowing that there's redfish in there, you know? And when we get in these ponds, you find the right pond, they're in there. These fish are as bright as Merle's shirt. You can see them from 100 yards away. But another thing is, those fish sometimes are really finicky and spooky. That you can bomb a perfect cast on one and he will spook before the bait hits the water. So if I'm going to be tournament fishing, I would play the conditions as far as water level, water clarity. Like if it's dirty, I'm not going to go try to sight fish. I'm going to try to jig deep and put a bait in front of one.
Sabine, I would agree with you. Is most visual for me. Don't get me wrong. I've caught them in these points, in these mouths, these guts, these bends, right? Just blind casting. Hey, I know there's a reef down here. I'll throw over that reef, right? Boom, get lucky. But most of the time, I'll see them when they start blowing up bait and they start roughing up the bait, and I'll throw on top of that because most likely fish miss those opportunities of those mullet. I love it when they miss a mullet. Like when I see them miss that mullet, I know I'm gonna throw right on top of that where he missed that mullet because he's mad he missed that mullet and he's eating big fish. Don't get me wrong, big fish do eat little baits like small shrimp and stuff like that. But when I see that, that's an idea that I'm gonna throw right on top of that. I've been even in the deeper part of the. Actually, it was one of the Chris Murphy and his wife were fishing this tournament. We were fishing the tournament too. They came in and they were out. They had their fish. They were all smiles and ears, and they booked it. Right. We that was one of the spots where like I visually seen them in the deeper parts, on the deeper parts fishing, like the blowing up the bait on the top side, and I threw it, and then we caught a good one. So we didn't make the way in that day, but you know, oh well.
Yeah.
But congratulations, Chris and his wife. I think they won it that year, that day. I think it was the elite, last year.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing, like you said, those mullet, a lot of guys that fish out here, they look for actually not mullet or shrimp. We look for crabs. Because if you think about the analogy, if you have a crab the size of my hand and a mullet the size of my hand, right? Or a shad even, what's going to be heavier? The crab. All that shell, all that meat in there. He's going to be a lot heavier than your redfish that's sucking down a mullet or a shad. I get it that they're oily and whatnot, but the density of a crab is what really adds the weight onto these redfish. And I think that's part of the reason why our redfish are also so heavy. We have one of the best blue crab fisheries on the Gulf Coast. There's not a day out of the year where you can't go into one of these bayous, throw a pack of chicken out, and get you a whole cooler of nice blue crabs. So I think that's part of the reason our redfish are so dense and also very fat.
I just heard that your redfish are pre-stuffed, so you know.
Oh yeah.
Well, crabs, that's a good point. I've actually caught one crab, and he did weigh a lot, and he or caught a redfish with crab in the stomach, and he did weigh a lot. That was a very good point. But yeah, targeting the ones that eat crab, that's definitely one to write down in your notes. You see a crab getting his butt chased or something, that's might be one you want to target. Yeah, I never even thought about that way.
Well,
But
he's
that's
not going to burn a lot of energy chasing a crab down.
Yeah, I would imagine that crabs are much slower than a mullet running away. So
yeah, for sure. That's good intel. Appreciate it.
I got a comment in the chat for you, Daniel Marco, saying that he needs more kayak YouTube content from you.
Yeah, I sold my PA-14 like a year ago, and I put some of that money towards this new boat that I got, and I call it the Kayak Killer. But that old tin can get into stuff that I can get in my PA in. It's insane. But I do plan on getting back into the kayak fishing. I'm probably not going to get another PA-14 because that was basically like lugging around a little John boat. But I haven't got into thinking which one I would want to get. Maybe an Outback.
Get the links.
The links? Oh God,
Yeah,
I'm
the links
terrified.
the Revo. I have a Revo if you're interested. It's fast.
I had the Revo, and there are fast.
13.
That's the one I won off of
Oh yeah, yeah.
the
The Angler of the Year for Saltwater Survival
yeah,
Series. Yeah.
Angler of the Year Saltwater Survival Series. I had that one, and it was really fast. Don't get me wrong, but I was terrified to even sit up in it. That's part of the reason I got that PA-14. I love the stability. There was some days where I'm back in the pond. I have a cooler in the back, and I'm standing on top of the cooler, push pulling. Yeah.
Yeah. I've recently come across the links, and I've been playing with that, and it's because it's so light. I don't think it's as fast as the Revo just because of how wide it is, but because it's so light, it kind of offsets that. And but you have the stability as well. Um, and I've been kind of loving it, and I'm inching myself towards making that my main kayak and getting rid of the Revo. As much as I hate to say that, so
I had a
but
buddy that we go offshore and he takes his links out there
Oh
and
God,
1 to 2s. We're out there in 1 to 2s. He's out there with 1 to 2s, and
that's bold. That's
yeah, but no, I mean he's not stressing, not like worried or anything. That links is pretty stable, and he's out there booking it and hanging with us, and no issues with that. Um, but
But,
it's the
actually,
kayak.
that's another good thing to bring up. I know that I've seen some pictures and videos of you. You're not far offshore from Sabine, and you're catching, like, triple tail and kingfish, right? And snapper, like, real close. How's the offshore fishery from Sabine?
the offshore fishery could be better. They cut a lot of our rigs down out here.
Yeah.
When I was doing it early in life, like around when I was a teenager, maybe around 14 or 15, you could blindfold yourself and do a 360 and point in a direction, and there's 10 rigs in that direction. Versus now, I think we've lost damn near 90% of our rigs out here. So a lot of our reef fish are getting hit harder because of that. And I think it's not so much concentrating them now versus it's making them more smart for a loss of better words. And here we're running 60, 70 miles offshore to catch snapper now, to catch
Uh,
even some decent sized snapper. So it's tough. Even our kings are pretty much MIA. I haven't caught a king this whole year.
that
It's
sucks.
just
Yeah,
the
me neither.
Yeah.
I haven't cut. No,
Stop
I'm just
lying.
kidding.
Stop lying, Merrill.
I
It's like
know
No, I think
jelly.
the kingfish. Yeah, the kingfish they come and they go, right? So I mean, we were out looking for tarpon on Sunday. I know a group left out with my buddy Wednesday, but they were down south. So I know there's a ton of kingfish down south. So if you're trying to catch you some kingfish, try those rigs first before you try some of our rigs
Yeah,
up here, up on the northern coast of Texas. Probably try the southern coast and try your luck there. But they've been. I think they had 70% that limited out of 30 something people.
nice.
Everybody caught kingfish. There was some cobias caught in the mix, snapper, fish like that. So I'm trying to think of all the fish they caught, but it was a pretty good report that Todd wrote. So yeah, if you're
I
trying to
think
hunt for kings, try down south if you're not so successful in the upper
I think
coast.
Merrill, the way that he's been talking is like you should fish everywhere except for around Galveston because Sabine has all the nice fish and all the offshore fish are over down in Corpus. Don't fish Galveston. That's what I'm getting out of what he's saying.
No, no. What I'm saying is, don't fish Clear Lake.
No
No, I'm
fish
saying,
Clear Lake. um, uh, one thing that I did mention earlier is that obviously with Sabine geographically located is right next to Louisiana. How do you navigate that? Because I know there's different rules and regulations in regards to uh, you know knowing where you're at and following Louisiana and Texas rules.
So it's really funny. So my cousin is Josh Soka. He's a Texas game warden. He's been on Lone Star Law, and me and him kind of chopped it up a little bit. It's like, so what if I did this and I'm over here and doing this, right? So from what we have come to a conclusion was, and I think I'm gonna do a YouTube video on this because I know a lot of guys ask, what are the regulations if I want to go fish Louisiana? So if you are fishing on the Texas side, if you launch from Texas and cross into Louisiana, you can fish the Louisiana waters, but you cannot go past 2 points of land. So, saying going into a bayou of Louisiana and fish that without a Louisiana license. You cannot break 2 points of land. You can be in the water of Louisiana, but you cannot um, keep fish that are in the points of land without Louisiana license. Versus if you fish Louisiana, you launch and you drive over to Texas, you cannot keep the Louisiana limit in Texas. So you cannot keep a 12-inch trout in Texas, because if you get caught in Texas by a Texas game warden, it doesn't matter. You're on the water. He's got you right there. So it's a lot of controversy. It's a lot of crisscross and gray area. But to be safe, wherever you're launching from, fish that side, keep that sack of fish. You're on Louisiana side, fish the Louisiana side, keep that sack of fish. Don't cross over. You're risking the ticket.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I read it like in a magazine years back about fishing Sabine, and it was all about just being wary and GPS coordinates of keeping track. Just don't go into Louisiana or don't go into Texas, depending on where you're at and what you're trying to do, just to avoid any um any potential issues.
Yeah.
So,
And that's another thing, fishing tournaments too. You're getting a lot more cost for licenses. A license for Louisiana is like $100 some,
mhm.
and then you have to abide by their regulations as well. The state limit on redfish in Louisiana is 27 inches maximum. So if you're fishing a one-man series, you're allowed one over 27, but all your other three fish can't be over 27 if you fish Louisiana. So it's a lot of play. It's a lot of navigating all that.
I was wondering if I wonder if Josh is the one we've been talking to. There's an individual for Texas Park and Wildlife. We were trying to reach out to him. He had some issues come up, but he wanted to talk about kayaking and a lot of new things that were coming up from kayaking. So maybe I'll touch base with you and get his information and get him on the podcast. And I don't know if that was him or not, but regardless, having somebody from Texas Park and Wildlife and the new up things that are coming for kayak. I know there's a lot of things that they're trying to do for kayak fishermen and new regulations and stuff like that that could be coming in the future. And what does Texas Park and Wildlife expect from kayakers and stuff like that. So maybe I'll touch base with you and get his information, see if he wants to come on the podcast, and
Yeah,
that'd
and
be a
also
good show.
we could also talk about those new trout regulations coming back.
Oh yeah.
Or
Oh,
not new, the old regulations coming
Old
back.
well, that's on the southern, right? Ours just
Yeah.
stayed on the same. Our southern coast. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be honest with you. Uh, I didn't experience any shortage, but I didn't fish like certain areas a lot. Like I didn't fish Matagorda a lot. I fished the lower Laguna from Corpus in the lower Laguna. In my opinion, man, there was no shortage of trout. Like we're catching. I mean, it was effortlessly to take clients out in Corpus Christi and catch a limited trout. Some of the clients, they just didn't want to stop. They just want to stay there and catch trout for like 4 or 5 hours. And I'm like, you sure you don't want to go try to catch redfish or flounder or something? Like, no, man. And there was so much trout down there.
Speaking of those regulations, did you guys see a big boom in the numbers when they cut down the limit from 10 to 5?
No,
Kinda, maybe. See, it's
I
so
mean,
difficult. So for
yeah,
me,
go.
for me personally, if it's the problem with anecdotal evidence. It's anecdotal. You're just fishing. You're just taking your sample size and bringing it in. So whenever they cut it down, you know, from a from my standpoint, I was catching good fish all through that time, and that partially. And again, this is because it's anecdotal. Partially, it was because during that time when they did it, I was still in college or kind of right out of college, and I was still having so much time to fish that I all my free time was spent fishing. And like and during when I was in college, my school schedule was based upon my fishing schedule. So, which by the way, kids, don't do that because it took me like years to graduate. So don't do that. But um, uh, so I was to me, nothing changed, and of course, obviously it would take time to change it, but I just never saw the change. But now, as I'm a father and I have I have a career I'm going through, and I'm fishing instead of probably like 10 times a month, maybe I'm fishing 4 times a month, if that,
Jeez.
and it's I've been struggling, but also at the same time, like this year has been a anomaly because I've been fishing for trout. So it's been weird. But from anecdotal standpoint, it didn't change anything. In fact, started catching bigger fish. Um, but the numbers were all the same. So who knows? What
Yeah,
about you, Merle?
I agree with Jonathan. It was the way they gathered their evidence. But I mean, anytime you're being conservative, right? Obviously, there's going to be more opportunity for fish to get bigger and have more fish, right? Like that's always going to be a plus. So I mean, regardless, But as far as where I've been fishing, same situation. Still catching a lot of fish. Still catching fish. Um, I noticed that a lot of people that were fishing with bait struggled. A lot of people that stick to artificials. This is just watching people and what they post and what they said. But a lot of people that fished bait, they struggled a little bit, and people that threw artificials just pretty much stayed the same. Um, yeah.
Merrill's just perpetuating the classist artificial guys against the bait soakers.
Yeah, I love it when they say. I love it when they say, "Make croaker a game fish," and then like everybody just like starts this big old rant, and everybody gets mad and upset, and then who cares? I don't care
But
how
but Daniel, actually, I was thinking about that too. What is your again kind of going back to Sabine? What is your best day that you ever had out there in terms of like I guess like a memorable trip that you had like you caught a bunch of monster trout or a bunch of monster redfish or flounder or combined total. What was your best day that you ever had out there in Sabine?
So inshore wise, we there was one trip where I took my parents out and they just got down there and we were in the fall before they shut down the flounder fisheries and everything. And a lot of people don't think of Sabine as a really amazing flounder fishery, but it's one of the most untouched, unharassed flounder fisheries on the Gulf Coast. Like in Galveston, you'll be shoulder to shoulder with people. You come to Sabine, you have a whole area to yourself. So we were going out in my old bay boat, and I haven't been fishing in a minute, but I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, we got an incoming tide. These flounders should be in the pass. So I pulled up to this random point that I just picked off, just looking down the bayou, and I was like, that one looks good. Let's stop there. Threw the anchor, 2 cast in. Mom hooks one that's close to 8.5 pounds. She thought she had a drum. I was like, I don't think that's a drum, Mom. So we get down up, and after that, we just kept banging big, big, big flounder. We had our limit within, I don't know, an hour, and we launched on Louisiana side flounder for 3 people. And then,
Oh
like
dang.
my brother in the chat says, triple tail. You know, that's one of my favorite fish to catch now is triple tail. One of the best eating fish on the Gulf and one of the most elusive. I think that's really what draws me to them is the elusivity of these fish. It's not like anyone can go out and, oh, he's fishing this spot, he's fishing that spot. Let's just go over there and soak some shrimp and we'll get some. It's not. There's so much finesse to it and strategy because we're fishing these areas where, yeah, we can see them, but we have a couple wrecks out in Sabine where we'll take our boat and run. And when they're in there, you can catch them, but getting them out would be a different story. We're using 7-foot medium heavy rods, 40-pound braid, lockdown drag. And when you get bit, you don't know how big this fish is going to be. The other trip, me and my brothers went out. We hooked 2 or 3 that were close to 30, 40 pounds. It was just as wide as a door. And you don't know if you're going to hook that one or you're going to hook a 4 or 5 pounder. So I think that's what really draws me to them. And it's probably one of my most memorable trips is doing that on my own, not asking for spots and just putting a game plan together and actually planning out.
Hey,
Yeah,
that's
you can
also good
plan out.
advice. That's
Yeah,
also
you
good
can.
advice right now. Making a game plan and putting it together and figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, take
Yes.
me on that triple tail plan that you got figured out. No, I'm just
You can
kidding.
do it.
Let me
You can do
get. Yeah, take.
I was just saying that, putting the plan together and figuring it out, and then here you go, Merrill, mooching off Daniel
Yeah,
here.
yeah, there you go. Take me to that plan that you got figured out. But
You guys got the Talkin down there. You can't tell me there's not a triple tail hanging out in that area.
oh no, I got friends and buddies that target triple tail. I'm just so focused on the tarpon right now.
See, that's the
I think
crazy thing.
I think triple tails can be like probably one of the targeted species. I know my buddy Mark Baker likes to target them, and he's one of the guys that I tarpon fish with too. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll get up on them.
What were you saying to Daniel? Do you not have tarpon over where you're at?
You don't have tarpon down here. We
Y'all
got
probably do. You just don't know it, right? Because that's the way I was.
that
Like,
is
because
true.
I fished for like I didn't know they were there. Every time I'd go hunt down kingfish, like I never really noticed it, right? Until you start focusing on small, subtle things on top of the water. Then you're like, wow, they've been here the whole time. I didn't even know it. So
Yeah.
there might be some up there. I don't know.
See, that's how we were too with the triple tail. Uh, just one day I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure there's a triple tail or some hanging around here. So we would go out and buy like $40 worth of nice shrimp. And one, we were trying to catch pompano. Two, we're just like, it's a star tournament. Maybe we'll catch a big sheephead. And sure as hell, we dropped shrimp down and we're like, oh my god, we got triple tail here. And that's an insane thing to me. Is people think that these are, way offshore fish. No, these fish are right here next to the coast. If I wanted to, I could probably take a kayak out and do it. But
That's real nice, man. How does it? What does it taste like? I've never eaten one. Like,
it's
give me an example, like a snapper, pompano, sheephead flavored, sweet flavored meat. Like, well, how would you describe the meat? And the bigger they get, is the meat change or what is that like?
so what I've seen is it has the texture. It's a really firm white meat. I'm talking about like flounder quality white. So the texture of it is kind of like if you ever had sheephead. It's a really firm white flaky meat. And the way I cook it, we blacken it. It's really good. Then we've made kenchua, which is a fish soup for Vietnamese people, and that's a really good fish to do it with because it's such a fish that's firm to where the soup doesn't break apart. It doesn't break it apart. But if I put it to a taste, I would even say it's kind of like a grouper. To be honest with you, they kind of look like a grouper. They have the cheeks and everything. You can get a good chunk of cheek meat off a triple tail, and it's such a firm, clean tasting fish. Now they are hard to clean though. Those scales are probably just as thick as a tarpon scale.
Yeah, and I know their gill plates are super sharp as well. So
Yes, and that's another thing that makes it hard to catch them. Is you don't have to worry about their teeth so much. You have to worry about their gill plates or their even like cheek rakers. They have cheek like little saws on their cheeks. So if you get that line running just the right way, they'll actually cut you on the line. So we use like 40 and 50 pound mono leaders to pull these fish out of these places we're catching them.
dang. Well, I know we can probably continue talking about Sabine forever, especially since this is your home waters, but we're kind of running up on time here. Uh, I definitely wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of give a shout out to your YouTube because you do have a YouTube channel. Has some great content on it. Like I said, you're the guy that I follow for all that Sabine areas. Um, and so yeah, what's your YouTube?
So you guys can follow me on YouTube at DD Fishing. I have Instagram as well, Daniel_D Fishing. If you guys want to check that out, please give me a follow. I really appreciate it. You guys are making my dream come true of making this a living. I'm close to 5,000 subscribers right now on YouTube, close to 3,000 on Instagram. So I do plan on making a lot more content. So guys, please give me a follow. And I really appreciate Jonathan and Merle having me on this podcast. It's really been a great opportunity for me to share some of my knowledge.
No, like I said, you have that expert knowledge and of the Sabine, and obviously you're an awesome fisherman, and um, I I still can't believe I didn't sign up for that redfish side pod that one
I really appreciate you. That kind of helped me pay the gas bill driving over there from here.
tournament. There was a saltwater survival series, it was a flounder tournament, and I did horrible that flounder series, but I talk about it sometimes on the podcast where I just gave up real early and I just went over to my redfish spot, caught a big redfish. I caught like a 6.5 pound trout that morning as well, and ended up getting big trout, big flounder, not big flounder, big trout, slam, and then I would have gotten big redfish, but I did not sign up for it. And Daniel, he saw the weight and he's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna." I didn't even get it, and then I was like, "Yeah, I didn't enter." And he just did that little dance right there. So
Well, there's been a lot of times where Jonathan's cleaned up the entire side pots before, so it didn't surprise me.
so But yeah, thanks again, Dana, for coming on board and talking with us. I do want to give another shout out to our sponsors, Dirty South Kayak Anglers, or DSKA. Search them on Facebook for a great group of guys and gals to talk fishing with on the Texas coast. Also, Foray Printing. I know Aaron was on the chat earlier, but he does some of our custom merch, such as towels. And Aaron, I'll be reaching out to you as well later for our my fantasy football gear that I'm trying to get together. Knock and Tail Lures. Um, if you're looking for a swim on the fall action with our knock and tails with a built-in rattle, awesome lures, soft plastics. They have 3 sizes, and they're just great for all around for trout, redfish, and flounder. Another last shout out for Brittany Solesky. She's a realtor based here in Houston. If you're looking for commercial or residential real estate, reach out to her at Brittany at grindstonereg.com or at 281-740-0498. And Daniel, you also mentioned your lure of choice was a Deadly Dudley.
Yes, sir. So this is the brand right here, Deadly Dudley. It's actually one of my first big bait sponsors right here. And if you guys check out my socials, I have codes and discount codes for you guys to use. You save a lot of money, and in turn, you're helping me promote the brand and helping me make money to make more videos for you guys. But I really appreciate all you guys that watch my videos and all the love and support I've gotten in the recent years. It's been an amazing dream that I didn't think I'd be able to do. I didn't think anyone would want to watch me just catch some fish.
Nah, man, you definitely deserve it, man. I've been enjoying watching you over the years grow as a fisherman, and your attitude is addicting to be around. Like you're just a fun person to be around. You got a great attitude, a good head on your shoulders, and you're always progressing as you're fishing. So you've been a pleasure of mine to watch. It's our pleasure to have you on this show, bud.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, everybody go and watch. Go look at his recent Instagram post and ask him where you caught that flounder, because that's a massive flounder.
Yeah.
But thanks again, guys, for watching. Again, we're live every other Tuesday at facebook.com/one last cast podcast. It's been great. Tight lines. Merrill, why don't you kick us off something to kick us out of here, and we'll end the episode.
Have fun, guys, and just have fun.
Okay, that was weak. We need to work on that. But thanks
Yeah,
again.
you totally can. You ask for it every time, and it's like always like I'm like a deer in the headlights every time.
But tight lines, everyone, and we'll see you out on the water. Have a good one.
Take care.
Later.